Hello, Uta Hagen here again. You'll notice I decided to put on something different. I haven't worn this in a long time. Um, but I'm going to continue this commentary on the therapists. And I thought maybe I should clarify a couple of things regarding the interactions that trans widows typically are having with these affirming therapists who have a political agenda of coercing and influencing the wives to stay in these untenable marriages. So, as far as I know, there was the first therapist who was an uncertified doctor's wife. I believe the doctor was an endocrinologist. So, this was completely conflict of interest. She was recruiting men who were going through this counseling for their fantasies. And then, sending them over to her husband to get prescription pills. And I had the understanding that somehow she was supervised by the PhD sexologist. Um, so we'll call this first one Ruth the Charlatan, as I call her in my memoir, In the Curated Woods, True Tales from a Grass Widow. The second one we will call Connie the Charlatan, because Connie, she took the name Connie. Her first name was really something else, but so we'll call her Connie. And she was the PhD sexologist who wrote all these very political things in a sworn affidavit submitted to court and pretended in that affidavit that she actually was doing all of the therapy sessions that Neddy was going to. She was not. Neddy made it very clear to me that Connie, the PhD, was too expensive. So he went to Ruth, the charlatan, who had zero credentials. I think she told me she didn't even have a college degree of any kind. Um, and then, of course, there was the later a brief session experience with Marianne, the marriage counselor, who had contact with both Ruth, the charlatan, and Connie, the sexologist, behind my back. I had no idea going into those counseling sessions that this marriage counselor had all of this information and was in fact colluding and communicating with the other professionals that, unbeknownst to me, or other practitioners, Ruth and Connie, that unbeknownst to me, Neddy was actually going to see. And my perception after that last session with Marianne, the marital therapist, my perception was that they were all colluding, all four of them, Neddy and the three, unfortunately, female operators, and they were colluding to try to influence me that I must have some bisexual proclivities, or I must have been attracted to Neddy because secretly I must have known that Neddy was actually a woman or something like that. But I want to go back to that last appointment where she said, I keep on talking about this, I keep on talking about my trauma, and I'm like a Holocaust survivor. I do want everyone to know that I had converted in a Masorti, otherwise known as conservative conversion, in 1987, just a few years before that, because this would have been 95 when I was in there with Neddy and Marianne. And I stood up and walked out as soon as she made the comment of Holocaust survivors who don't stop talking. I and Neddy had visited Auschwitz, actually, on a study program in the summer of 1980, and I, during the process of my conversion to Judaism, I studied a great deal of 20th century history. And also, when you live in Brooklyn during that time, I mean, I had many friends, especially Jonas Pasternak, some of whose story I do tell in one chapter of my memoir, because he was actually a great support to me when all of this was playing out. And I used to go to his butcher shop and sit there, and he would come out from behind the counter if he wasn't too busy, and talk to me. And it was just a unique thing. And there was also Uncle Leo, who was one of the people who survived Auschwitz, who had a low number on his arm, which means that he had been there for a long time. So I remember when Marianne, the non-Jewish marital therapist over on University Place, said this thing in early 1995 in this marital therapy session, I got my coat, stood up, and said, in memory of the 6 million, I'm leaving. I'm out of here and I'm never coming back. That's enough.